Well, welcome to this second of 6 talks, the Gospel in 6 nutshells. And in this second session, we're going to talk about what went wrong. So this is what the Bible tells us so far. God was there in the very beginning of time as we understand it. It was his decision to create. You see, love is relational and operates within relationships and within friendships. And God was going to enlarge his family. Love is something that you choose to do, you choose to express. And the need to love and to be loved is a likeness or a characteristic of God put in us by him, and it's deeply seated within both men and women. And through this growing family, God will be able to truly express his love and to demonstrate what it really means in its pure and unadulterated sense. By the way, going back to Genesis, it does not say in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. It actually says in the beginning gods, plural, created the heavens and the earth. Did you know that? The Hebrew word for God, singular, is El, E-L. The Hebrew word for God's jewel, two, is Eloha. And the Hebrew word for God's plural, 3 or more, is Elohim. And that is the word that it uses in Genesis. And we immediately see reference to the triune God, the 3-in-1 God. In the beginning, they created. God the Father spoke the word, Jesus went forth, and the Spirit hovered over. The entire Godhead was at work in the creation of this universe and men and women. Well, God would start first with building an environment for his family, a universe. And first there was an explosion of light or energy, and we read about this in verse 2 of Genesis 1. Now, you know, there is a certain point in science where energy turns into matter. It's called quark confinement. And Einstein predicted this, and 70 years later, Germany's Max Planck Institute figured out how to do it. You see, science obeys God's laws. And at a certain point in time, after this explosion of energy or light, as we read in our Bibles, all of the matter in our known universe was created, and it exploded outwards, and it's still exploding outwards today. It all happened at God's amazing command. Science has come to call this the Big Bang. Over the next period of time, God formed the heavens, our earth formed, our atmosphere developed, seas and dry land appeared. The Bible does not say that all this happened in several 24-hour days. It uses the Hebrew word yom, which simply means a period of time. The most common meaning of this word is between the daylight hours. It can also mean a 24-hour day. It often means an age or an era, like saying that we today are living in the age of the internet. At some point in time, there was a peak in God's creative work as men and women were formed. And at that, God broke into poetry. As amazing and as awesome and staggering as his creation was up to that point, it was only when we came along that his heart skips. And looking upon his extraordinary handiwork up to that point, he was to proclaim how good it was. Tov in Hebrew means good. It actually means beautiful, bountiful, and pleasing. But when men and women arrived, he surpassed all of his other work, and he finally declared it to be very good, very tov. God gave Adam things to do and things not to do. Men and women were to be fruitful and obedient or loyal to their father. Their relationship with God was close. So close that God would walk and talk with them right here on earth in the cool of the day. All of this happened within an area of 4 rivers. The area was fertile and beautiful. But disobedience changed it all, and as sinfulness, greed, lust, and eventually murder and death entered into this family, God withdrew to a distance. And rarely would God ever get so close to men and women again. There were a few exceptional glimpses, Abraham and Enoch amongst them. But God would not presence himself with men and women in the same way, at least not until Jesus would come millennia later. There will come a time in the future when God will make his dwelling place with men and women. And I can't wait for that time. But right now, things are different. We live between the ages, as Paul would say. Our sin and our disobedience has distanced God. Now you see this, there was a risk for God in creation, but it could be no other way. A relationship built upon agape love means that each party has to be free to decide. Cannot be another way. Each party has to be free to be faithful or to be unfaithful. Each party has to have the option or the freedom to walk away. The alternative to this was to create a situation where there was no choice, to create a family that was programmed to love and faithfulness, but had no choice. And that means the creation of either pets or robots. God did not want a family of pets that would love him instinctively, but would not really choose to do so. And he did not want a family of robots that were programmed to love him and be faithful to him. He wanted friends, children in his own image, friends he could converse with and share life with, eat with, laugh with, cry with, stay with. So free will is a necessity. How could it be any other way? You know, I've entitled this talk, What Went Wrong? But in a sense, that's a bad title. Nothing went wrong. Or at least the ability to go wrong was part of the design. None of this was a surprise to God. We were designed to be able to choose. So the risk was inherent. You know, all the way through the Bible, God likens his relationship with his people to a marriage. He continually appeals to his people to be faithful. He says in Hosea, "You've divorced me, but I have not divorced you, and I never will." He appeals to them again and again, longing for the day when they will call him husband again. And instead they chose to pursue Baal and Moloch and other terrible man-made gods. In the story of Hosea, and I will leave a link to a talk I did on this in the description below, but in that story we have a glimpse of the big picture. God wanted a close and caring marriage filled with faithfulness, but his people had divorced him. And just like Hosea, God would never divorce his people. Hosea would eventually buy his prostituting wife back from the pimp that controlled her. He brought her back at a price, and so it would be with God. So there was a terrible separation for God. And as you read the Bible, you can hear the emotion in God's words, the tears, the heartache. And I'm sure that some listening to this will have had husbands or wives walk out on you. And you'll have a better understanding of what God went through than I have. I can only imagine, but his heartbreak is clear in the scriptures. He says in Hosea, "And it shall be in that day, says the Lord, that once again you will call me husband. I will betroth you to me forever. Yes, in loving kindness and mercy and faithfulness, I will betroth you to me. And you'll know me. You're my people. And one day you shall say, you are my God. I taught you to walk, taking you by your arms. I healed you. I drew you in with gentle cords, with bands of love. I stooped down and I fed you. How can I give you up? My heart churns within me. My sympathy yearns for you," is what God says in Hosea. You can hear his heart breaking. And just like Hosea and his wife, there would be a way back, a reconciliation. But what a picture God gave us through the life of his prophet Hosea. God would never give up on his people, and a way back was to be found. The relationship would and could be restored. A price would be paid. A scapegoat was needed to take the fall, and we'll talk about the scapegoat in our next session. By the way, we talked earlier about how our universe is still expanding outwards. And you know, science is debating today whether our universe will keep expanding and undergo a cold death, whether gravity will halt that expansion precisely and it will hover in what they call a steady state, or whether the universe will collapse back in on itself in what they're calling a big crunch. What do we know from our Bibles? What we do know from our Bibles is that one day it will pass away, and God will create a new heaven and a new earth. And we know that the new earth will hold a new city, the new Jerusalem, and it will be an amazing place for all those people that put their trust in Jesus. And then we're told that the most amazing thing will happen, that will amaze even the angels as a voice cries out once again, "Behold, the dwelling place of God is back with men. And he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes," it says. "There shall be no more death, no more sorrow, no crying, nor shall there be pain, for the former things have passed away." So in a sense it did go right for a time, but it will be put right again. A way back had been formulated. And we shall talk about that in the next session. By the way, if you click on this subscribe button down here and then click on the little bell, then YouTube will notify you when the next session is uploaded. And it also really helps to get these videos out there if you click the thumbs up or the like button. God bless you.